Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome back to my channel. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Chris, aka Mr. Grow It, and today I've got a Q&A video for you. If this is your first time tuning into one of my Q&A videos, I actually record them live on Twitch, and it's my goal this year to record a new one each month. So if you have questions that you want to ask me, head on over to twitch.tv/MrGrowIt, hit the follow button, and then you'll be notified when I go live next. And if you tune into one of the live streams and ask a question, you may be featured in a future video. Okay, I have rambled on enough. Let's get into the questions. Are you still growing Freak Show? I harvested that. So I got 2 cuts from Humboldt Seed Co. They were at MJ BizCon, and it's crazy to think that it was over a year now. So I actually got that, harvest both those plants, and I didn't clone it, and I'm not continuing on with it. I liked the terpene profile, wasn't crazy about like the bud structure and the way it grew and so on and so forth. So it's not something I'm going to keep in my garden, but I actually still do have some of the harvest, and good smoke, definitely good smoke. Do you have any experience with blue mats? Yes, I do. I have a 12-pack of blue mats that I've been using for several years now. I really like the blue mats. Using them off and on, no good reason for why I've been using them off and on. Hand watering is fun sometimes. But the blue mats are so awesome because they're so hands-off. I have it hooked up to a 14-gallon reservoir. That's sufficient for me because normally I'm growing between like 6 and 12 plants. So 14-gallon reservoir, top it off every 3 to 5 days. So it's not too much maintenance on my side, but I love the blue mats. Takes a little bit to dial them in to begin, but once you put them down into the medium, the medium should be the proper moisture level, then stick them down in there. Then of course, just follow the instructions. They have really good instructions on how you set them up, and they've worked out great for me, particularly when top dressing with organic amendments. And one little tip I'll mention that I've been trying has been working out pretty good is a lot of people will top dress the organic amendments and they'll top dress across the entire medium, right? Well, these blue mats, particularly with the dripper, I'm using just the one dripper down. Some people actually have a hose that kind of wraps around. I haven't done that yet. I want to do that. But I've been basically trying to get the amendments to be right underneath where the blue mat has been dripping. And that seems to have been working out pretty good because when I have amendments on the other side of where the dripper is, the medium doesn't stay moist on that side. So that's kind of the only downside of blue mats. I know some people have had issues with blue mats, particularly them not being set up correctly or failing on them and them flooding their grow tents and stuff. I've been fortunate enough to not have that issue, but I really do like blue mats. Highly recommend blue mats. Next question, what complete grow tent kits do you recommend? Asked Mr. Grow It. Well, shout out to our sponsor, Happy Hydro. They sell some really good grow tent kits, actually. Simple kits for beginners, really everything you need, just adding water. They also have kits with the automatic watering systems from Blue Mats and Autopods. We were talking about Blue Mats earlier. And a lot of them come with the AC Infinity products, quality products. I love AC Infinity. I'll definitely have a link to their kits down in the YouTube description section below. And did I mention that the kits include my book? That's right. My Beginner Grow book is actually included in their kit, which I thought was pretty cool. So it's a collaboration I've had with Happy Hydro. They're including my book in all their kits. So big shout out to them. And my viewers use discount code GROWKIT at checkout for 10% off. So thanks again to Happy Hydro. Are you using regular water in humidifier? So I actually have tried using tap water in a humidifier way back in the day, and it turned out to be a failure. The reason why is because I have so many minerals in my tap water. I have hard water, and the minerals in the tap water, what happens is there will be like a white fuzz that kind of comes out from the humidifier and gets all over your plants inside of the grow tent, and believe it or not, clogs up the carbon filter, restricts airflow, particularly that carbon filter sock, and has been no good. So ever since then, I've been using RO water for many, many years now. Some people use distilled water, but pure water without minerals in there. Do you still have a worm bin? Yes, I do. So I've had a worm bin for a little over a year and a half now, actually. Created a worm bin for composting, added in a brick of cocoa, some paper shreddings. Now I'm adding in the usual, coffee grounds, any greens that are left over, banana peels. Those are mostly what I'm putting in there. Some eggshells, although the eggshells, I made the mistake of not grinding them up. So eggshells, you should be grinding them up completely into a powder and then kind of putting it in there. At least that's what I believe you should be doing. Because when I just crumple them up in my hands and put them in there, they're still breaking down now. So don't do that mistake. But yeah, I still have it. It's alive and kicking. I have some red wigglers in there. I had some European night crawlers in there as well. So just trying to get some diversity in the worm bin. Another question here. Does Mr. Canucks do interview? Would you try to get him on your show? He's been invited to both my show as well as FTS. The response I got from him is he doesn't go on shows. He doesn't go on shows or podcasts. So, but he mentioned that, hey, if that changes, he'll hit me up. So fingers crossed, everyone. Regarding blue mat, how would you go about feeding advanced nutrients? Just water in or run through the blue mat reservoir? So what I would do is I would use it in the reservoir. You can do your weekly mixture according to their feeding chart. They have it broken down between weeks, right? So that's kind of what you're aiming for to put in the reservoir. Now, a lot of people go with a half dose or even a quarter dose of what's recommended on the feeding chart to begin to make sure there's no toxicity issues happening, especially with the auto watering system when you have something dripping down like that at all times. So probably want to start with a half dose or even a quarter dose, but yeah, mix it right up in your reservoir, pH adjust, and then check on it each day. You know, you might need to fill it up depending on how much the reservoir has dropped down. You can also add in water if you make your mixture too strong. You check the EC on it or ppm and you're like, oh, this is too strong. This might lead to a toxicity issue in my plant because maybe it's a smaller plant, for example. Add in water and dilute it down a little bit. Little tip there. But yeah, I'd mix it right in the reservoir and have it dripping down. I wouldn't go about like cutting off the reservoir at all and hand watering nutrients like that. What is the surfactant you use for IPM again? So I just use Dr. Bronner's soap, just a little teaspoon of it within water. Some people do a teaspoon within 48 ounces of water. Some people do a teaspoon within a gallon of water, and then adding in some essential oil drops is what I've done in the past. Don't do it as often now since I use the Mammoth can control, but I was using rosemary, putting a bunch of drops in there. Peppermint was another one, and then neem oil. I was using that as well. But yeah, Dr. Bronner's soap, very common thing used for a surfactant, or some people would just use Dawn dish soap. But I know there's some controversy on whether or not chemicals are involved there. So in organics, have you had the topsoil turn hard, cement-like? Is this from drying out too often? Good question. So I'm assuming you're talking about the amendments, kind of the organic amendments mixed into that top part of the soil, and then when it's drying out, it's hardening up. Yeah, I've come across that before, absolutely. And so since then, I've been adding in mulch layers, I've been adding in cover crops, I've been adding in soil on top of those amendments in order to try to avoid that from happening. And that's been working out pretty good. But yeah, it's really hard to sometimes mix in those amendments, and when you water it in, making sure that that top layer stays moist. It's always been a challenge for me, at least. So adding in a mulch layer on top of it has kind of helped prevent that from occurring. But yeah, good question. That has happened to me before. Do you ever see yourself growing in a living soil bed? Yes, I do. I actually have a 2 foot by 4 foot. Actually, I already am growing in a living soil bed, but it's outdoors, vegetables. I have a 2 foot by 10 foot bed by Grassroots Fabric Pots. Big shout out to them. They make some really good living soil beds. Yeah, lettuce, kale, bok choy. I had some carrots in there, spinach. Love the living soil bed. As far as for medicinal varieties, and indoor, I have a 2 foot by 4 foot bed, but I never actually set it up. I have some concerns because I could be moving maybe this year, but I hate to fill up a 2 foot by 4 foot bed and then have to move it, you know? So I think that's the only thing holding me back from setting up a bed indoors. Have you considered putting fruit in the medium to decompose? Would that help with the microbes? So generally you want to put fruit or veggies or stuff like that in compost first and let the microbes cycle that and turn that into a compost before adding it into your medium. Now the temperature will kind of rise when things are being composted. So generally people aren't putting things like that, like fruits or leafy greens or anything like that, directly into the medium and burying it down. If they are, they generally don't have plants in there. I'm not saying nobody's ever done it and nobody's ever been successful doing that, but that's just kind of the general route that people go. I've mixed up plant material in a bucket of soil before and just let that sit for several weeks and then planted a plant into it and been fine. But now never put fruit directly into the medium. Have you ever done that? I've never really even heard of anybody doing that, to be honest. Would you ever do a freak show run again? Probably not. I was talking about that a little while ago. I don't know if you were here for that or not, but I had a successful harvest. Still have some right now, but I did not keep it in my garden. So I'm not crazy. It was pretty kind of finicky grower, in my opinion. Any thoughts on throwing in a handful of worms into each pot to assist in decomposition and adding fresh castings to the mix. Great idea. I've done it. I had them in 7-gallon containers. I probably wouldn't go with any smaller containers. I wouldn't use worms if using synthetic nutrients, but organics, absolutely. I'm actually shifting up to a 10-gallon grow pot for organic. So I'm actually emptying out the soil from my 7-gallon containers that I've been reusing for several years now, and then putting them into 10 gallons. I just feel like with the bigger containers, better for numerous reasons, but particularly with the worms, which is what you're asking about, just kind of gives them more room. So definitely recommend red wigglers. Some people use European night crawlers. I have those as well. And African night crawlers are the 3 worms that you can kind of check out. And I've just purchased from Uncle Jim's Worm Farm. So online source, just Google it. I know a lot of people will grab stuff locally as well. I went to Walmart one time in the bait section. They have worms. They have like red wigglers there, and they looked awful. So I never ended up getting it, but some people will go to their local Walmart or bait store and get worms there because you get them pretty decently cheap. Probably get them a lot cheaper than Uncle Jim's Worm Farm. Another blue mat question. Lots of blue mat questions this episode, huh? Wow. It's a good system. It is. I travel for work nonstop. Can I use blue mat in my 1-gallon, then transplant my carrot and plant into my 7-gallon? Absolutely. Yeah, you can simply take that carrot, lift it up from that 1-gallon and put it into that 7-gallon. You'll have to adjust the dial and stuff to redial it in because it's going to be a different moisture level. And just I found that redialing it, recalibrating it, whatever you want to call it, in that new container, you'll find yourself having to do that. But like always, yeah, just make sure that that new container that you're putting it in is of the proper moisture, is of the ideal moisture level. That way, when you pop in that blue mat carrot and dial it in, it should stay at that ideal moisture level. But yeah, you can take it from one to another and switch it over real quick. No problem. What's been the most challenging thing about growing besides your humidity? That's a good question. There's lots of challenges out there, isn't there? So humidity has certainly been a challenge. As I assume you watch my videos, you know that I have very low humidity right now. 21% is what I'm seeing right here in this room. And so it's super tough in my grow room to keep the humidity up. I have humidifiers in there 24 hours. 3 of them actually in that grow room and in 2 grow tents. And other challenges. Heat can certainly be a challenge, particularly in the summertime. This is something I talked about pretty recently on the podcast I released. Basically, during the daytime, when the temperature reaches up to 100 degrees, 110 degrees outside, it's tough to keep the temperature down indoors, especially when I have a grow light on. It's generating heat. So I try to just stick with 12-12 photos during the summertime, keep my lights off during the day. Other challenges, I think everybody comes across the challenge of just keeping the plant healthy, the nutrition, whether it be growing in soil and having the right nutrients in there, right balance of nutrients. There's been so many times where I've had grower error, overfeeding, underfeeding. I definitely think it's a challenge to dial in feeding. It definitely takes a little while. Certainly top dressing organic blends in particular can make things a lot easier. Then you're just focusing on keeping the medium moist and not so mixing up nutrients on a weekly basis in a reservoir, pH adjusting, and then soil drenching your plants. So thanks for tuning into this month's Q&A video all the way till the end. If you enjoyed this episode, click that thumbs up button and also subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And be sure to visit me on Twitch at twitch.tv/MrGrowIt. Click the video right here to continue watching Q&A videos, and I'll catch you all in the next episode. Peace out, everyone.